Alrighty. Hmm. Oh, my screen started.
You know, I downloaded that eCam that you got, and I just have yet to set it up. I've downloaded on my Mac, but I have yet to set it up on this one.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Loads up pretty quick. I don't really mess with it. It's just now the default.
Mm-hmm.
And the settings about where I like it. So
yeah, I like that. And it integrates with StreamYard pretty well. I mean, it's just
it just thinks it's another camera. It's no different than having
Gotcha. That's cool.
It's like having another mic. You just choose the mic. You choose the cam. Although it defaults every time to the eyeglasses now. So it's pretty cool.
That's cool. I like that.
All
right. All right. So let's see. Okay. All right. I think we're ready to go.
All right.
Started. Scott will be joining us shortly. All right. We go 3, 2, and 1. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
All right, Sean, we're going to be talking some book publishing today. I love it.
Yes.
How to build your brand and establish yourself as a published expert. We talked a lot about that on previous episodes, but we've got a guest who's going to be joining us shortly.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be a little bit different angle, maybe than what we've covered in the past. So it's always good to get extra voices to talk about a subject from different angles, and but there's certainly a theme that a book is good to have for your business.
Absolutely. I think he's going to be talking about more or less what to do on the back end, not so much on like writing the book, which he's not going to get into that, but like what you need to do, because a lot of people make the mistake of stopping after they do the book. That's just like the beginning. I mean, you got to get out there and, promote that thing and promote yourself through it.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of exposure. So be interesting to have him and give us his perspective. He's actually written a couple of, I think, 1 or 2 books on that. He's written a couple of books himself. I think there's one on that topic. And then he's got one on, he's a tech guy. He's got one on dealing with technical recruiters, which I've got some stories to share from that end. So that should be interesting.
And he's, that's the one that has the curse word in the title, so that, because that's what you do these days.
That's right. Yeah. You use the F and then the blank blank.
Yeah. Some type of asterisk symbol, at symbol.
Right.
Like whatever you want.
Absolutely. Yep. That's the way it goes. That's how you get attention. We're going to talk about attention grabbing words on our next episode, but not on this.
Cool. Very cool. All right. Well, what you drinking over there?
All right. So before we get in, because we're not sure our guest has a beverage. Yep. So we want to go ahead and start a little early, kick things off a little early. I've got a good one today, I think. I've got one from Southern Tier Brewing Company, and I know it's a little early for Christmas, but man, we've
been a rough 2 years. I'm even soft. Usually I'm a diehard after Thanksgiving guy. This year I'm like, whatever. If you want to start putting up decorations, go for
it. I know. Rachel did it this week, and I'm like, I was just like, it's kind of nice to have some lights, to brighten up the place. It's getting dark early these days. So
the darkness has hit me hard this year.
It's tough.
I don't know.
Really tough.
Like, I don't remember this last year, but like 5:45, I'm like, oh my God, is it terrible. Midnight yet? Because yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know. I guess being inside more than usual the last couple of years. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
So a little Christmas lights to brighten the mood, and then if you're gonna have some Christmas lights to brighten the mood, you should have a 2Xmas.
So is that a double IPA?
It's a double Xmas. It is a spiced double ale.
Double ale. Okay.
So I'm excited about this. Brewed with orange peels, ginger root, cinnamon, and fig paste. Ooh, fig paste.
Fig paste.
Big fan of fig paste.
Yes.
Yeah.
that apple butter.
So we shall see. I'm excited. When I saw this one on the shelf, brand new, just came in this week.
Well, see, now I wish I'd picked I had two picked out, one for this show and one for the next show. Now I wish I'd picked the last one so it'd be in sync. But so I'll save that one for the next show.
All right.
We'll be an hour closer to Christmas when we record the next show. So I'll save it for then.
Okay.
So I've got from Family Business Beer Company right down the road, Dripping Springs, Texas, which is, I don't know, 5-10 miles down the road max. It is the Grackle Hill Country Imperial Stout, rich, robust, pitch black, and ominous.
Ooh,
and it comes in at 8.9%, I think. Yeah, 8.6%.
Wow.
So, rich and ominous.
I like the can. I like that.
Yeah, it's got nice kind of got throwback look to it, a little bit of old school throwback to it.
Would you say that was 8? Yours is 8 point what?
6.
Okay, mine's 8. Mine's an even 8. Yours is 8.6.
Yep.
Cool.
And it is definitely ominous. It's just black.
Ooh, yours is like pitch black.
There we go. I just put the whole thing. That's how black it is.
Wow. There's no seeing through that one. Let's see what I would. That's
yours is definitely an ale. Yours is definitely an ale. My next one is an ale. So.
Oh, good. All right.
Got a little splash on my desk from when I popped the can. Got a little.
It's a good way to ruin a keyboard. Yeah. I've gone through a couple of them.
I luckily on the Mac you can push the keyboard out of the way, unlike the laptop. So yeah, I've got the keyboard kind of up under the stand, but it did splash a little bit. All right,
I've got a sticky key from one of my last. I got the new Mac, so I got the new keyboard with it. But with the old one, there's always a sticky key from a splash of porter or stout they got in there. It just kind of gums up the works.
Maybe on the next show, but I found this mechanical keyboard for Macs. So it's like an old-fashioned typewriter keyboard that's Bluetooth for your Mac.
Oh,
I was like, that seems kind of fun, actually. So,
it does seem kind of fun.
Like it actually makes the old typewriter sound.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I want to see that. I want to see that in action.
I mean, you won't have the ding and stuff, but at least you get the clickety clack. Which is funny that I'm saying that because everybody hated how loud the Mac keyboards were there for a while.
Yeah.
The MacBook keyboard. But that was like unintentionally loud,
Yeah.
But if you're in your office alone and you're just writing, that clickety clack is very hypnotic.
It makes you feel like you're getting something accomplished. I feel like I like it. The older I get, the more I like it. I used to hate that stuff, but it was too loud. But
there's a digital version of that called Ohm Writer. It's an app. It's like a minimalist app that
I've used that. Yeah. I love that too. It's got the sound.
Yeah, I love that. If you really want to go deep into a thing. So, all right. Well, shall we give a sip since our guest is not here? Cheers.
Cheers. Hope I don't have to email him.
I like it.
Well, you can taste the spice.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Christmas spice. I like those.
I do too. All right, I'll let you go first.
Well, mine is a basic. I mean, there's no holiday frills to this one. It's just a basic, the Grackle. So, it's exactly what I would expect an imperial stout to taste like. Not too sweet. You're not going to have a whole bunch of these for sure.
Yeah, right.
But one or two in the evening. After some pot roast or something.
Ooh, man.
Now
you're
just
talking.
like that comfort food on a dark winter night. So I'm going to give this. This is good. Yeah, it's got a little smokiness to it. So I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5.
Ooh, 4.5.
Yeah,
good, solid score.
Yep.
Man, I don't know what to give this. I'm not sure. It was kind of it's a taste I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
With the spices. I knew it had, I read it, but I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, until you actually like put it in your mouth, you're like, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still gonna, it's still very good. It's light. It's a little lighter than I expected. So I'm gonna give it I'm probably gonna give this one a 4-1. 4-1.
All right. Not bad at all.
Still good. Yeah, still good. Anything above a 4 is solid.
Yeah, for sure.
It's more than solid.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, this is the part where we twiddle our thumbs until.
Let me check email real quick. Don't leave us hanging. Scott, let's see. He sent me the calendar, which I even, rarely do you get a guest that sends you a calendar invite after you send them the Zoom link or the StreamYard link. But
yeah,
let's see here. Let's see what he has to say. All right. Send him a quick email. We're waiting.
Right down the.
The Jeopardy music. Something better than that, though. Let's see.
Don't want any copyright violations.
All right. Send. Yeah, we're waiting on StreamYard. Let's see. Double check. This is where I double check to make sure I actually sent him the link, which I know I did. There. Yep. There I sent it.
You sent it to me, but I don't see him copied on it. But
no, actually, it's weird because he came to me. This was a Scott Kane. He came through a query that I put on one of my composite podcast shows. Okay. And it was kind of for a different topic. But then when I found him, I said, listen, I think you'd be great for this show, but also our Persuasion by the Pint. So I said, would you be open to coming on both of them? I don't need him on the composites till next week. I said, but are you free tomorrow? So yeah, he was like, yeah, sounds great. Until he's not here. So, and thankfully, this is a topic that we could probably do. I could do some improv on.
Oh yeah, we could definitely do some stuff.
We could do some stuff on this before he arrives. So book publishing. So Sean, you've done you co-authored a book, right? And before
I did one of the things with Tim. Where we did a chapter each, the kind of the multiple authors. Tim Davis put that together. Our friend Tim Davis.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
The Daily Difference. That's where his Daily Difference started. So, So I've done a couple of those where I've been one chapter, but I haven't done a regular book yet. I've done several book promotions where I've written copy to sell books, but not where I've actually written the book. You, however, you've done several.
Yeah. And I'm kind of got the itch, it's been a while. I'm getting the itch to do another.
Yeah.
I'd like to do another revised or a third edition to our Selling on the Green book that Tim and I did, because I've got some new ideas for that book. We first did that, published that book back in 2014, I believe. That was the first edition. Then we had a second edition that came out in 2017, I believe. Yeah, it was 2017.
So that's a cool story for the people. We haven't mentioned that in a while. So for any new listeners, like that story of Selling on the Green. tell people what it's about and some of the cool stuff that happened with it.
Yeah. So I got the idea. I had written, I've written I've written 4 books. The first one I did was just a complete dud. I mean, it didn't do anything, but it was cool because I'm glad I did it. It was all about the process of just going through and really, the self-discipline of actually sitting down and just like writing out your ideas. And this was one that it's not one that I just took a bunch of content that I had already previously put out.
Yeah.
It was one that I literally, I remember the reason I did it, back in 2008, is with my first company that I was ever in technical sales for, in manufacturing sales. 2008, as many know, that big recession came through, and I was completely, I, like a lot of other people within the company, were completely laid off, because we were kind of like, they decided, the company I was with decided to rely mostly on distributors and not really salespeople. So it was like, that sucks, because the previous year I had like my biggest year ever in sales. So I thought, man, I'm really getting the hang of this stuff. I'd been in sales for about 6 years at that point, 5 or 6 years, and loved it. And then all of a sudden I get the pink slip, it's like, crap, what do I do? And, at that time, my whole idea was, I had been doing marketing on the side, working with clients, helping them, asking them questions about what they're doing some consulting work. So I kind of had my foot in other ponds, kind of tiptoed in other ponds as well during that process. And, I decided, one of the things that I need to do, that I've been wanting to do, is write a book. So I said, this is probably the right time to do it. I'm kind of in between, trying to figure out what my next move will be. Thankfully I had some clients, even during that job transition, when I was out of sales, I had marketing clients. I had things that were in the works, and I had some things going at the time. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. This is the time I'm going to do it. I'm going to knock out this book and be done with it. Well, it's easier said than done, because sitting down for me and just simply writing and writing and writing is agonizing, especially when at the time you had young kids. It was crazy. We homeschooled our kids at the time, and it's just, they every so often knocking on the door. Hey, hey dad. So finally I told my wife, I told Rachel, I'm going to rent a hotel, I'm going to get a hotel over in Cookville, which is about an hour and a half from here. And I am going to sit and write that book nonstop for 3 days. And so that's all I did. I just holed myself up in a hotel and knock that thing out. And it was it was great that I did it, but I tell you, it was the most isolated feeling I've ever felt in my life. So just sitting in a hotel by myself for days and writing. So anyway.
But the hardest part is getting started.
That's it.
And pushing through. But if you're like me, like I have to have extended periods. I see Scott just showed up our guest showed up in the green room.
All right.
Cool. Getting that overcoming that inertia or lack of inertia, I guess, to get the book going.
Yep.
But man, once I'm in, like I really enjoy the process of writing. It's just, getting started always seems to suck.
Yeah, it is.
I don't think that's just me. I think that's pretty universal. So well, we'll come back to your book a little bit after we talk to Scott about
absolutely.
Book. But that book opened some doors for you. Is the kind of the moral of the story. Yeah, even in a time when everybody else was kind of twiddling their thumbs and wondering what to do in the recession, you were like, just write a book. And build your brand.
It's a good time to write a book.
Yeah. So all right. We'll use that as a segue to bring in our guest. Do you have the bio?
Yep. I have his bio pulled up. So our guest today I'm excited today. We have Scott Turman. He is a technologist, entrepreneur, and author. Prior to founding, he's founded Bright Ray Publishing. Prior to that, he wrote code and cryptographic systems for organizations like NASA, the U.S. Department of Defense, Disney, and several other Fortune 500 companies. He is the author of a couple of books. We're going to be talking about mainly his book, How to Build Your Brand with a Book, Establishing Yourself as a published expert. And also, given his background and his expertise in the technical fields of software and so many other, technology related fields, he's also got another book called Stop Getting effed by Technical Recruiters. I find this hilarious because I've got some stories that we could probably talk about if we have time today on the show about technical recruiters that reach out to you on LinkedIn and just some of the conversations that we've had there. But maybe we'll get to those. With that said, Scott, we are happy to have you on. We're going to pull him out of the green room. Welcome to the show. Oh, no, now we sent you back. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, how you doing? I heard there was beer here, so I brought beer. Yeah, I know it's only 4:30, which felt weird. I'm not gonna lie to you. 4:30 seems very weird.
Oh, it's only
going in.
That's why we do the show at 4:30.
My Belgian Hoegaarden.
Oh,
very nice.
Very nice. Yeah.
Excellent.
Scott, if it makes you feel any better, it's only 3:30 where I'm at, so 3:45.
Good. Excellent.
No.
Excellent. Yeah. No,
I'm in Austin.
Belgian. My wife is Belgian, so I'm kind of limited to the beers I can drink. But at least I picked the right country, right?
No, yes. That's a good one. I've had that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law would say that it's no longer in Belgian hands, so it means in my InBev. But whatever, it's still delicious. Cheers.
Well, cheers.
All right, we'll do another cheers. All right.
Okay. So Sean McCool with the greatest name in the history of names, and Jonathan Taylor. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah, great having you on today, man.
Yeah,
so
John Taylor's a great tailback. I mean, he's a Wisconsin tailback, and now in the pros.
You never went by JT? JT, I got a cool nickname as well. I just want to throw that out there.
JT was always my nickname in high school. So I have a lot of accolades going to. There's a running back for Indianapolis now.
Yeah, Colts. Yep.
Colts.
And we root for the Georgia Bulldogs, and we have a quarterback who's actually been on the bench lately, riding the bench, named JT. He's not seen the field for quite some time, unfortunately. But yeah, so we're happy to have you on, man. Thanks for coming on. First of all, I got to ask you about the beer. Is that a go-to, or is that one that you're?
It is definitely my go-to for sure.
Okay.
For whatever reason, I was married 15-ish years ago in Belgium. So I spent almost all of Christmases there for the last 15 years, and this is definitely by far my favorite. I've tried probably 100 plus beers. My brother-in-laws have made sure that I've tried almost a third of the beers in Belgium, but this is definitely my favorite.
Did you meet your wife in Belgium, or is that where did you get married there? I missed that.
I got married there. We actually met in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
My kindest sister, I had a restaurant in downtown Orlando. She was Swiss, and the European ladies knew each other, so I met her through my sister.
Awesome. Very
nice.
Cool. Well, tell us before we get started. We want to dig into your book today. We love this topic. We were actually before you came on, we were discussing. Both of us were, our experience. Sean's kind of done some co-authoring there, and I published a few books. But we want to know about your background before you begin. You come from the technology sector. Obviously done some really impressive work there with NASA and Department of Defense, Disney, several other Fortune 500 companies. So give us a little history of yourself before we get into the topic.
So my dad worked on the original Mercury project. Which
cool.
is our first American foray, Project Redstone, into space. I was named after a guy named Scott Carpenter, who I guess was the second American into space.
Nice.
I've got tons of pictures of my dad and the kind of guys or whatever. But so fast forward. So obviously I kind of had a thing for NASA from kind of day one. All my science projects were always, they were always Atlas this or they were always some moon lander or whatever, And finally, I kind of somehow frauded my way into working for NASA. I have a liberal arts education, but I'm very, very good at very specific technologies, and I was able to talk them into giving me a chance, and I was there for a couple.
That's awesome. So that's actually pretty cool. You have a liberal arts degree, which for most people that gets them about the price of a cup of coffee these days.
But if you take the LSAT, it'll get you into law school. Okay, so you're an LSAT, a perfect LSAT score away from a law school. So a philosophy degree, but so I started there. I was there for an entire month, and I still didn't have a computer because it's NASA. They didn't really have. There's not a lot of. Nothing was waiting for me.
Right.
So I literally had an almost all access badge.
Yeah.
In a lifetime of dreams, and I'm literally able to just kind of wander that tens of thousand acre, kind of facility for almost a month. I went to go see him, and where Mercury went off, and I could see from a distance, the different pads, and there's also live pigs just wandering the property that have been there since apparently the settlers have been here. They're these kind of feral hogs.
So which location?
Gators and so this is on the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Okay,
that's just crazy.
It's Buck. So I believe that my first week there, this old naval dude is like, dude, I'll show you around, and he's kind of driving us around. And we went to this one huge kind of man-made pond. And he took his truck up and tipped over a little bit and looking in the pond. And I looked to my left and right, and there's 300 or 400 gators as far as the eye can see because there's no natural predators, right? And there's well fed because of the pigs. But yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience. And then I was just basically a motley priced technology prostitute. I just jumped from there to Disney to different kind of contracts, for the last kind of 20 years.
So were you self-taught on writing? I know you wrote code. Did you do a lot? Was a lot of that just self-taught learning on your own?
So when I was 13 years old, my dad had me at a place called Rice University till about 3 or 4 in the morning running market simulations on a Cray mainframe.
Wow.
Yeah, I was writing code, assembler code, C++ since probably 10. My dad was doing early AI, early kind of market analysis, market techniques back when in the but no, my phone is more powerful than the computer I was working on. There was like a billion instructions per second at the time. But so yeah, it was that's kind of how I kind of got my start in.
So what year was that?
What year was that? 1991.
Okay.
It was a while back. There was no internet. Well, there was internet, but it was ARPANET. It was the way nuclear silos talk to each other. It wasn't necessarily something that you would use to go look up cat pictures or whatever like it is today.
Yeah, I think I remember in 1980 we got, or 81, somewhere in there, we got a TRS-80 for Christmas, and it was like a cassette tape drive, and it hooked up to your black and white TV.
A beautiful thing.
And like, I remember I literally wrote like a game code on it, like an if this, go to, that type thing. Had I only known, I should have stuck with that. I mean, that would have been.
So my first computer was an Atari 400, and then it was a Commodore 64-ish, right? It had the little tape. You have to hit play and record your whatever.
Yeah.
It never quite worked. It kind of worked some of the times, and you sit there for hours and hours and hours doing little code or whatever. It would just disappear. The moment you unplug it, it was gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so I guess technically, my best friend in the whole world, Clint Christensen, we wrote a little program that was like, his sister's name was Sarah. We're like, does Sarah suck? Yes, no. And like we'd have this kind of like, why or in. And then, we were like 9 years old, 10 years old, and poor Sarah, she'd come in and Dad, Mom.
I mean, it's funny that you wrote that. I wrote some basically like because back then the Choose Your Own Adventure books were big.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Huge.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was basically trying to do that on the computer.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that like the internet is what it is, right? Because that's the first thing that people tried to do with computers, make fun of their sister and do games.
Right. Did you ever hear
we haven't really advanced very far?
Did you ever hear of a text-based game Adventure? It was literally just like north, south. You've reached
ED. Oh. I don't know if I've heard of that one, but I remember those text-based adventures where it was everything was written out. It was nothing but text.
Right. And it was like reading a book. It was rad. And now it's I'm sure my 12-year-old would just poo-poo that all day long. Just kind of shake his head.
It'd probably be cool again if you did it now.
Of course.
It'd be retro.
Totally retro, man. You know, Sean, you bring back memories because I had this the Commodore 64, and I remember that first drive that I get because I didn't get the disk drive. I got the tape drive, which took, if you wanted to load it up a simple program, it literally took you like 10 minutes waiting for that little ticker to get to the certain point where you knew that, you know, that program would be ready to run. That's crazy.
What's interesting though is that, so I've probably interviewed 500 people, 600 people in my lifetime. And that's one of the markers of a good developer is like, oh yeah, you're target, well, obviously age wise, right? And the other is, Bill Gates once said that typically if your parents were engineers, it typically makes a good developer as well. I don't know what that is, but, but Atari 400 would definitely be on my list of, oh, you've been at this for a while.
Right.
You know, markers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my dad was a salesman, so I ended up writing copy instead. So, you know, oh well. So yeah, so you were in the technology sector for what, 20 years, and that's where your first book came from, right?
So I had I still have a Bright Ray Consulting. I own the trademark for Bright Ray, so I'm like, all things Bright Ray, all things will be named Bright Ray going forward. Why reinvent the wheel? And this book was specifically a big middle finger to recruiters because they've been taking advantage of nerds for a very long time. And I've been trying to write it for years, and it really wasn't something that serious. And I was just kind of using it. Also, it was easier to recruit people for my own company if I was like, yeah, stick it to the man, right? You know, with this book. I've been trying for years, and I finally found a buddy of mine's, daughter had been writing books for years, and she became kind of my writing partner. And then boom, we got this thing done in like 2 or 3 months. And then we published, and then like interviews and all this kind of stuff started happening. And Google, like if you look up my name in Google, Scott Turman, you'll see that it separates out me like Bill Gates almost. So like I'm on the right hand side and like Scott Turman and like, the companies I founded. So I had a buddy, Craig Sicanti, he's a Rice University professor, and he's like, hey, I need a book. Would you help me write mine? And then we did it for them, and then again and again and again and again and again. And it went from like, oh yeah, we'll do that for $15,000. And like, okay, like we'll do that for $20,000. Like, okay, we'll do that for $25,000. It just kept going on and on and on, and here we are.
I love it.
Incrementally, I like that. Go up and up.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's usually not the market. It's usually yourself that's underpricing, right? It's not the market forcing the prices down. It's us for sure.
So. Well, it's all about it's all like kind of the value too, right? Because it's so the way I got my gigs at like Disney or at kind of this Fortune 5s is I would FedEx the CEO my resume of the company, right? He would literally just I'd FedEx it out to his house, like a psychopath, and then he would open it up at the time, and he's like, who the hell is this kid? It's sending me his resume, but he would walk it over to HR. Boom, I got the contract.
Yeah.
And I got another and that's literally how I was going around the machine of kind of people in the way to go execute. And then I discovered
simple. That's just so simple too. I mean, it's just
who reads the mail? No one gets mail nowadays, right? Mail is the way to go. It's not like you have a ton of it. There's not a lot of competition. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, I discovered these, right? They're so think of it's like those little magnets here, and there's a cell phone screen sewn into the actual thing, and it starts playing the video. And then boom, you can kind of start pitching the person.
That's
so like, hey, Jonathan, hey, Sean, whatever. And then it's kind of shocking when you get that in the mail. And then my close rate went up, and we just started adding more contracts. And
okay, you got to tell me where do you get those? Because I absolutely love those things.
So I found a factory in China that does these for probably $19 to $25 based on how backed up. That's the thing. You could probably get it through DHL and not have to have it shipped over by ship, right? And I'll give you my contact over there. What's funny though is that when we get people in the pipeline for our books, right? We'll meet them on Zoom, and then I'll FedEx them my copy of my book, right? And this thing is like, hey Jonathan, thanks for taking the time to repitch them again.
That's a perfect set. Yeah, that's a perfect combo right there. The book and for our listeners who aren't watching the video, they're listening. He showed up. These are really cool. They're just basically screens that you can record what, one they probably don't hold a lot of video space, but enough to record one video.
An hour. You can put an hour on here. I mean,
an hour.
You can put whatever you want as far as the size is.
But you open it up and you just hit play, and there's your video presentation right there along with the book. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's shocking. So like when you're, you know, when you're kind of and that's the thing is that, you know, we're selling some things that are like they're about the price of like a really, you know, like a Hyundai, right? They're not a cheap. We don't sell cheap things, right? So these while they may be a little bit pricey, if your close rate even goes up just a little tiny bit, it's more than paid for.
Yeah, because I mean, you're selling a high end service or high end product, so
anybody that's selling high ticket, you know, in the 5, 10 plus range. I mean, definitely makes sense if you've done especially if it's a step 2 where you've already had one call and you're kind of trying to close. If you're not a one call closer, if you have more of a realistic process.
They say in the pyramid, right? The people who are ready to buy these ticket items are only like 3% of the top of the pyramid, right? And you're basically competing with all the how good are you guys at cussing on this thing? I don't realize. Is this a family show? Okay, good. So you have this kind of the kind of sales douches that are all going for that top 3%, right? They're all fighting for that 3%, but the money is in the bottom, you know, 97%, 96%. They're just it's the wrong time, right? Everybody's right that top 3% of the right to buy right now, which is basically no one, and you're fighting it out with the used car salesmen of the world. When if you kind of teach your client kind of the thing that you're trying to sell, you'll be the first person they kind of come to, you know, when they finally have the need. It's a timing sale. Our close rate is about 2 months, right? It takes a while. So you got to fill the pipeline from the top, and then, you know, and kind of teach, and, you know, they can write their own book. Hell, I'll teach you how to write a book. No big deal. Yeah. But if you don't want to go through that very painful process, and it's awful, and you know it's awful because I think you both have been involved in books before, it makes it way easier.
It's a horrible process. I hate it.
It is awful.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a video with Mark Manson yesterday, who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Right. So he made curse words.
Big fan. You know,
he made cuss words on covers cool. So he broke that wide open. Although I don't know if it was him or if it was You Are a Badass. If that came first, I don't remember which book came first, but.
I think his book came first.
But one of those two.
How about this one? This one's good. This is Badass Through History.
Okay.
And this is pretty old. This has been around for a while. So
it looks a little older. So.
That's awesome.
Ben Thompson's for a set for the.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, but it's funny because Mark Manson was like, no, I actually enjoy writing. And I was like, well, maybe that's why you're so good at it. Actually,
right.
You're actually enjoying
I hate writing. I have a staff of we have many writers that kind of you know we figured out basically it's about an hour a week, and we kind of pull the book out of people's heads. This kind of writing process and ideation and thesis, and this chapter thesis to that one, and you know, and you're missing, you know, it kind of lulls here. Give me an example of what happened in your life where you figured this out, and just kind of pull the book out of their head, and then after 4 months, boom, the book's done. Yeah,
because I mean, you've honed in on what most people. They get stuck. And, you know, we all talk to those people who've been working on a book for the last 5 years and it's never done. And they're like, yeah, I'm working on this book. It's like, dude, if it ain't done, it's never going to get done. I mean, you know, you just got to get it done. I mean, so, you know, thankfully today we have so much in terms of there's technology. You can, you know, voice it out. You can record it, have it transcribed. You can do all sorts of things to get your content out there. But I think for whatever reason, you know, this is a huge obstacle is just the first part, which is getting it out. And that's not even, to me, that's not even the toughest part. Once you write the book, if you want to sell a lot of books, that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is like, you know, getting out there marketing, and maybe it's the most challenging. It's actually not that hard. It's just, there's a lot involved there, but maybe you could talk about, you know, what are some things that you do in the process of helping your clients, you know, get these books that they want to publish out.
So let's pretend that the whole thing is done, right? The book is done. We've had our 1 hour interviews per week for 4 months. We've pulled all the thesis out. The book has been sanded down. An editor has gone through it. A proofreader has gone through it. we've given you a beautiful cover. The thing is ready to rock, right? And that's just the beginning, like you just pointed out. That's just the kind of the start, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole dance that has to happen about, maybe getting some pre-readers. You need to go probably get 20 people to read this thing to make sure it's not awful first. And is it through the right lens? Is it the right, is it to the right person? I mean, if you write a book for everybody, right, for business book, you've written a book for nobody. If it doesn't reach out and touch maybe a max of like 2,000 people in the entire, you've wasted your time. You've really got to niche it down. And to think you're going to sell 100,000 books it's not going to happen. I mean, it's like a handful of people per year actually do it. This book isn't for that. These business books aren't for that. They're here to close business, to kind of as a proof of life, so to speak, of your experience and what you're trying to kind of be better at. You can teach it, and then they'll come back to you if they actually have the need. And that's really what they're for. But, just drop these in FedExes all day long is the first thing you do to every editor you can get your hands on, everybody who will listen. Podcasts like this. I mean, I think I've done 6 podcasts in the last 7 days. We're getting ready to kind of republish a couple of things. And it's a whole kind of dance. But, once you're there, there's you got to get the reviews on Amazon, and you got to get it in Target, and you got to get it over in Walmart. And there's all these things that kind of have to happen. Right. And but ultimately it's not for that. What it's for is the guy you're trying to get you business. Right. It's to get you business. It's got nothing to do with sales. So you get number 1 on Amazon. Whoopie freaking do. You made what? I don't know, $1,100. Good job. Yeah. Or you could go sell your services for real money.
Right. Yeah. I think gone are the days in today's publishing industry. Used to, authors get these huge, upfront contracts for to write books, and there's probably still a few that get those, but those are really, I mean, you don't see that much anymore. You're better off. And
it's a scam. Here's why it's a scam. Here's the scam. So no one's going to publish you unless you already have an existing client base.
Exactly.
Right? You already have a million Twitter followers, right?
Right.
What's the point of the publisher again? What are they doing for you if they're not actually
exactly?
You're bringing the whole audience. It's going to get you 10,000 sales. What are you doing? You're going to get 75 cents a book. Good job. I hope that 80 grand was worth it, for your forward. or you go do it, the alternative way, either do it self-publish, make $10 a book. And now that 10,000 sales turn into real money.
Right.
And maybe forever, if you do it right, there's just kind of a constant flow of income every month. But I'm not in it for that. I'm in it for more business.
Yeah, I mean, so the publisher, really, they've pretty much made themselves obsolete. If you're doing if you've done all that legwork up front, outside of everything, and like we were just talking about, nowadays you can find editors that are freelancers. You can find graphic artists that are freelancers everywhere. I mean, you don't need a publishing house to go and, help you along the process. You can, if you know how to kind of workflow this deal, kind of workflow from start to finish, everything out, and the people that you need involved, you pretty much do this yourself and cut them out.
That's let me ask,
Scott, like who your particular clients, not books in general, but your particular clients, what types of people are coming to you for the type of book that you like to write for them or help them write?
So I did a count on DocuSign the other day. I have signed 113 NDAs in the last 5 months. So I'm just going to be general about it, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Generally speaking, I have interviewed submarine commanders, F-16 pilots, astronauts, senators, people trying to become senator, congresswomen, congressmen, people trying to become congressmen. So it's every type of human. Ultimately, the one that I'm rolling off as the CEO of this Fortune 10, and I want to start a new life. I need a book to go kind of draw the line in the sand of my expertise or my management style or whatever, right? Let's say 70% is founders, inventors, C-suite, and then the rest of them are the boy band producer, TikTok star, kind of the kind of the rest. Who already have 1 million followers, right? Who can actually make $100,000 if they publish a book tomorrow. So it's just, they're all over the place for sure.
Well, that's interesting because, we've had other people that talk about publishing a book on the show, but it's usually from a very like marketing funnel type situation. So I was curious to hear about you because kind of got that feeling that you were dealing with a different type of client. So I'm curious, like how that's different, and what you've learned that anybody could apply in the book publishing if you want to publish a book.
So here, it's funny. The thing that kind of changed everything for me. So the book was a vector, right? Almost like a cough is a vector for a virus into your lungs or into someone's nose, right? A book is a vector into a door in a podcast, a door in a radio interview, a door on Turkish national television. Go look my name up and type in Turkish national TV, and you'll see me making an asshole of myself. And this very similar, exactly the same background here. It's just a vector into, kind of start the conversation. And the thing I learned was the book is actually the 10%. The 90% is the fact that, if you do it right, Google will then present you the kind of the same way it presents me. And you've kind of won the branding game. When someone looks you up and Google presents that way, you've won. You've won the branding game anyway. Because ultimately, when you think about branding, personal branding, in my opinion, is the act of sanding down what people find about you, right? It's not the actual thing they find. It's the act of making this kind of personal experience, right? Once you've kind of mastered what people find the first 5 or 10 pages of Google, you've kind of won. And then once they get there, it's really a matter of, are you saying the right things and are you, kind of presenting yourself correctly? But that's what I found is that knowledge panel is what they're called on Google. It's a thing that so when I have a reporter ask for a quote, right, I will send them google.com *Q = Scott plus Turman, and then I'll give them the quote. And when I did that before, right, I'd have like 1 out of 10 people would go, meh, right? Now it's like 8 out of 10. Go look me up again. Go look up on the news.
Sure.
It's Forbes, it's Inc. Magazine, it's Wall Street Journal, it's all over the place. And they just kind of take you more seriously when you've kind of controlled that brand.
Right.
That's really cool.
And by the way, your podcast. So there was an update in Google a couple of weeks ago. Podcasts are now being presented as a knowledge panel, and yours is not being presented correctly.
Oh,
good to know. Can you explain? That's one thing I was reading when I was reading through your site, a couple of your blog posts about the Google Knowledge Panel. Can you explain? Because I'm not sure everybody knows what that is.
So a couple of years back, and please let me preface this by saying that there's a guy named Jason Bernard, an Englishman who lives in Paris. We're publishing his book in a couple of weeks. He's the people at Google consider him the expert, and he doesn't work for Google in knowledge panel. So all my knowledge has come from Yoda, which is Jason Bernard, right? Okay, so a couple of years ago, an engineer at Google's like, how can we screw people out of actually visiting their site and get all the traffic to the front page, right? Oh, I know. Why don't we simply grab the data and represent it when you do the search itself? Right. So don't go to BillGates.com. We'll just show you what BillGates.com says, and we can kind of surround it with advertising. Right. Yeah. So it's a little complicated, but ultimately it becomes the kind of the SERP, right? The brand SERP, the brand search engine result page. Right. So everybody has their brand, and they're not gonna click on Pepsi. They're gonna actually be presented with Pepsi, on Google's homepage. Right. And it's kind of a way of keeping the traffic still on all the conversation on Google.com. It's actually diabolical when you think about it. Right. So a while ago, they were like, okay, well, we'll pull stuff from Wikipedia. Google's like, okay, we'll go verify that with LinkedIn, and then we'll start presenting things like Bill Gates as an example, right? And then they kind of loosened up. Okay, you know what? We're going to do it with authors next. If you have a book and you publish it correctly, we're going to present you with that picture and that knowledge panel. And they kind of give you these kind of outer ways to affect that, something called schema. A schema doc is kind of, think of it as a JSON way of what you do. You put it behind the page, kind of in the HTML of your page. It says, hey, Google, I'm claiming this. I'm claiming to be Scott Turman. Go look at my LinkedIn profile. Go look at my Twitter profile. Go look at my Facebook. Notice it's the same picture. Notice the same description. I control all that. So I'm clearly the authority on Scott Turman. Then Google will go, okay, knowledge panel, boom, right? And then it'll throw up your knowledge panel. And then what you do is you claim it and you have a little bit more control over it. So what we're going to do next week is I'm going to help you get your knowledge panel figured out for your show by fixing your schema as a call it a gift.
Thanks.
Because right now, if you look yourself up, you're going to see that you're not presented in the way you should be presented. You're darn close. It wants to do it. It's already there.
Right.
So you just have to kind of stance something. We lost Mr. McCool.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Sean. He just,
Mr. McCool. Sean McCool is also a dead Irish senator, if I remember correctly. You go look at. I looked up Sean McCool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and
did you know that, Sean?
Possible. There's a. You're muted.
It's a remarkably. It's more common than I would like, considering everybody likes my name so much. But yeah, there's a bass player named Sean McCool. There's quite a few Sean McCools out there that are in the public spotlight, ironically.
I feel like there's probably an Irish punk band out there with like a singer named Sean McCool. I don't know. It just seems like a really badass name.
Well, Finn McCool was an Irish giant legend. That's very, very like apparently every other pub in Ireland is Finn McCool pub. So McCool is definitely a common name over there.
Have you ever heard Sean pronounced Shun? For whatever reason,
No.
From the Irish, like, oh, it's a Shun McCool. Like,
yeah, I can't understand people from Scotland. Like people with real Scottish accents, like they're hard to understand. I'm like,
their beer.
You're not speaking English.
They're the inventors of Scotch. Let's just throw that out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's 9 months of raining cold. Okay, there's not a lot to do there except for do poetry and drink. I just want to.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a linguistic adventure for sure.
Yeah.
So on your book, I want to get into some of the stuff that you kind of help people do outside of once you get the book published. Once it's out there, once it's, something that they can hold in their hand and show off. I mean, what's the next step of the process? Because I think it's just begun in terms of getting your, I totally agree with you. Your book is basically a glorified, in my opinion, it's a glorified business card to get your, to market yourself as the expert that they need to do business with. But how do you go about doing that? I know you talked at a few things with the mailings and things like that, but how do you get into on a broader level, people to find you, to learn more about you and learn more about your book?
So there's a couple ways of doing it, but we'll start with kind of how I did our second book, right? Yeah. I immediately started reaching out to reporters and started giving them related quotes of some sort, right? So I started getting in Forbes and Inc. and whatever. Scott Turman says this, Scott Turman says that, author of yada, 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 and there was a link to the actual site.
Yep.
And then once I had enough of those, I started throwing up as seen on Forbes, as seen on Inc. magazine, as seen on Wall Street Journal, kind of on our site. Kind of gives you that kind of credibility tsunami, so to speak. So people actually do get to your site. They're like, look at him. Look what he's done, right? Mm-hmm. As an example. The kind of the very next, so Amazon, you got to game a little bit of the system on Amazon books, right? To kind of get that ranked correctly. And it has a lot to do with velocity of sales, right? That first day, that in through 7 days is super important. A lot of that's done through kind of who you know, what you know. There's this kind of game you play where you give it away for free to go get the comments or try to get the 5 stars. And there's this kind of balance, right? To kind of get that all done. But ultimately, Jonathan, like you said, who cares? This isn't for that. Ultimately, it's a closer. It's a FedEx away from closing the next deal that's hoping worth $50,000 or $100,000. It's got nothing to do with the book sale. You made $7. Awesome. Or you could use that to go close more business, which is really where the money is.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, it depends on who you are. In the early days, I definitely would help people set up HubSpot. I would show them how to do funnels, and then kind of as we started doing we started getting more and more employees and more was going on. I kind of started doing that less and less. We'll do it for a fee for sure, but ultimately you're kind of setting up that sales funnel where however you're doing it, however you're, whether it's inbound or it's through AdWords or however you're actually doing the initial kind of at the top of the funnel. Ultimately that book is like step 3 where it gets FedExed out, kind of to the person and kind of help them write that copy or whatever. Mm-hmm. Podcasts, again, podcasts are huge, right? If you get, if you're able to nail it, I mean, this podcast can be viewed thousands of times for a year. You would learn about my book for a whole year. Well, no, go do that times 20, and you've got all the eyes and ears you need for a very long time.
Sure.
I mean, and that's really part of it too. That kind of interview process. If we're trying to get you in, let's say MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, again, what a great way to FedEx this to the actual editor. What a great way to go shoehorn yourself in right into the conversation. If you say the right things, you can get the interview for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think
that's the key too. What's that?
Well, especially with the video card that you were showing there, I would think if you want to be on video format, letting them see you on video and that you look and sound good on video, that'd be a little extra, whether they realize it consciously or not. That's a pretty powerful little extra.
Or you could find yourself on national Asian news or Turkish national television. That's also a great way to start, because you gotta not blow that. Like, oh, look, he doesn't completely, shit the bed, but he's actually on national TV. This is also a great way to do it as well.
Yeah, just hide that one. Try to hide that.
No, there's no hiding it. No. They put me next to Mark Zuckerberg, and it looks like I'm talking to Mark. I'm like, no, we're putting that on Google Images. We're gonna have
that's cool.
Me. Yeah, you're going to go to scottturman.com and go to that last blog post, scroll down, and there's me and Zuck. And I admit, I go, this clearly I'm not with Zuck, but it sure looks like I am in this actual, in the interview itself.
Wow.
But
when I saw that on Amazon, I think I first saw that image on Amazon where it looked like you were actually interviewing Zuckerberg. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome.
No, I'm not that cool at all. But and I don't think he is either. But it's fine. It's totally fun. But yeah, and you know how that started? That started as a quote on some news site, and that was something along the lines of like, there's no way metaverse is just gonna try to change the topic or the subject. I said something really flippant. It was late in the day. I wasn't thinking. And then it went live on Yahoo Finance, right? Seen by a gazillion people.
Right.
And then I start getting these requests from reporters from other countries. I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? and then next thing I know, it's like, oh, we wanted you to interview you on the this, and then this, and then this. And then BBC was like, yeah, we're trying to get someone to do a quote. And it just kind of blew up. But none of that would be possible unless you looked me up and you saw that I have some credibility, kind of on Google. And it's all related. It's all this kind of interconnected spider web,
Yeah, that's true. It's like, you got to build it slowly, but then once you do, like, it all feeds each other and just starts to grow kind of exponentially.
Sean, are you from Texas?
I live in Texas, yes. I was born and raised in Georgia, same as Jonathan. But I moved west. I'm
from Houston.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm in Austin, just outside Austin.
Way cooler. Oh my God. Houstonians, don't send me hate mail. Austin's rad.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, just from the weather the humidity standpoint. I'm not a fan of Houston for that.
100% humidity and 110 degrees. Awesome.
Yeah. I'll stay out here in the desert where it's dry.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, at least you have Lake Travis. You have Hippie Hollow. Austin's got a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Hippie Hollow. Have you been there? Is that one of your places?
Yeah. I was 13 years old, and I'm like, hey, that man's got no pants and he's water skiing across on Lake Travis. And my mom's like, he's got no pants on. Look at that.
Wow.
Dirty steak and hippies and no pants on.
Yeah, that is the one nude cove of Lake Travis for sure.
It is no bueno, because there's you're like, that island doesn't have bathrooms. I don't know what's going on out there, but okay, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not like it's out in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's pretty populated right there. So it's
exactly
it's
right.
crazy.
Can you imagine in your $6 million house, you walk out and there's some bearded hippie. It's like, hey, gotta wave it to you, in his tent.
Reminds me of Friends and the naked guy across.
Oh, the naked guy. Yeah.
In the building across, it's like,
exactly
no.
Right. Exactly right. So, only imagine that at 110 degree temperature for 4 months a year. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, what else do we need to know about getting a book published? We kind of skipped over the writing part. Jonathan and I were talking a little bit about that before you came on. It's hard. It's painful.
Yeah.
But you need a writing team. That's the thing, is that, you have these Kim Kardashian or whoever published a book. No, she didn't. She had a writing team that just kind of figured it out. Oh, we lost Jonathan.
He's fine. He'll be back.
So it's a writing team, and we have our team. We kind of brainstorm this thesis. We brainstorm these kind of like generally outlined chapters that we try to figure out who who is it you're trying to talk to? What's that lens look like? Who are we trying to who are we trying to reach? Who are the 500 people who would care about this topic or this kind of problem?
Yeah.
And then we those interviews are all kind of built like that. And once we think it's out, probably the first 3 or 4 interviews, then we start in earnest really trying to pull the book out of the person's head, and they just talk, they just muse, they just talk about whatever, that first chapter, second chapter, and then kind of we make sure to guide them through the entire thesis of the book. And after 3 to 4 months, you're done. We get you a cover. We typically, we say, hey, pick 20 covers that you kind of like from books, and then we go back to our designers, and we'll come back. Well, here's 100 covers we came up with. Tell me what you hate, because I think what you hate is more valuable than what you like, because I don't think anybody knows what they like until they don't see it, kind of deal.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of how we get the cover process done, and then we publish away. Audiobook, all the stuff kind of goes together.
Well, have you ever seen these right here? This is a mini book, MINIBUK, minibook.com.
Yep.
So this is one I know when I reached out, it was from my Composites Weekly channel. So this is one of the little mini books that I've done in that space. And these are so cool because they're like, this one's like 30 pages. So it's equivalent to like, I don't know, like, 3, typed out pages in Word, or 3 or 5, 3 to 5, something like that. Anyway, these are awesome because I hand these out to, I've done this for years, hand these out to kind of using, your technique of getting these in front of the people that need to know. What's great about these is they're so easy to read. They're condensed. They get right to the point, for people that are busy. But I love these. These are great. You can go to trade shows, hand these out. I mean, they're amazing. So I was just curious if you had heard.
I had mused or thought about doing like a series of mini books on highly technical subjects, because nerds, we like to do, when we do actually go somewhere or maybe take vacation, we want to learn something.
Yeah.
Well, why not learn HTML5 or Java or whatever, and just kind of bite-sized little bites. And I always thought that had been a fantastic way to kind of teach. But yeah, absolutely, what a great way to, you could also hand those out, left and right. They're probably 25 cents a piece to kind of get printed out.
Oh, they're super cheap to print.
Yeah,
and you buy them in bulk, so you get like 2 packs, and you can even get them with the you could even buy them with the envelopes that you can, if you want to mail them out. Generally, I just hand them out because I just take a bunch with me and hand them out.
So you have a cute little yellow kind of envelope, or right? Just you set it up through the. That's awesome.
And they even come with some of them. You can come with a tearaway business card on the back, which is really cool, perforated that they can just tear off. So
yeah,
but yeah.
No, and again, you're just trying to get something in the hands of someone.
That's it.
If they take 30 seconds to read it, they're going, okay,
right.
I get it. Let's give the guy a call.
And I find that the more the slimmer, the less they have to read, the better. If you get right to the point and focus in, kind of get to the heart of the matter, give them
I was going to ask, like, where are y'all landing right now for your people, kind of on length of books? Do you have kind of a sweet spot, or does it not even really matter because people aren't reading the book?
It's ego. A lot of it's ego, right? Because when we first, like, this is the art copy, the advanced reader copy, right, of the book, right? And I'm like, well, I want it to feel like a business book, which is turns out 210 pages of fairly thick paper. And it feels good in the hand, and it feels like a substantial book, right? It's not terribly thin. And you can honestly, you're like, well, that's too thin. Yep. Right? So it's because for a businessy type book, call that 20 to 35,000 words. It just kind of depends on what you include in it. So 200 plus pages is typically the business book you're looking to kind of publish.
Sure. Yeah, so 20 to 30,000 words. That's a good, at least in my head, that's a good number. So that's
but also realize you're going to probably have 10 pages of glossary terms, depending on how technical your product is or what it is that you're selling. I mean, so, you can kind of slim it down or expand it out depending on what you're trying to do. I mean, I had one guy, it was like War and Peace. It was 50,000 words.
Oh man.
And it's just never. It's just because 50,000 was this thick book. I'm like, no one's gonna. Okay. Done.
Yeah, we had one of those. We had a guest on the show. He wrote cracking the learning code. And that thing is
about that thing.
It's like a old Britannica set.
Okay, Tolstoy. It's like I think 50,000 words is probably too much. No one's gonna read the Encyclopedia Britannica or the Bible, and that's just too much. It's kind
of. He said all you have to do is read the first. What does he say, Sean? The first 3 chapters, and you should get the whole.
The first 270 pages, you got the whole thing, right? It'll take about 2 months.
Yeah.
Go sabbatical, go to a monastery. Yeah. You got it. No big deal.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of feedback?
On the flip side of that, if your book's too thin,
right,
there's things you can do. Like you said, if you need to beef it up, I've always found that like you can add illustrations, you can add, graphics, illustrations, you can add quotes in there. There's all sorts of things that you can add as filler, like you said. The
how index. Old are both of you? Out of curiosity, how old are you, Jonathan and Sean?
I'm 48. Sean is 50. Yep.
Okay, so we're in the same. We're basically peers, right? Time-wise. So do you remember in the early days of school, we were like, you know what? I'm going to pump this up to a 16-point font because my paper, high school paper, it's got to be X amount of pages long.
Oh yeah,
and you're like. That's 40 words. You basically put 40 words on a single page.
Man, I could.
Yeah.
That's master of fluff.
That's when when you realized
know any better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you realized that a bunch of adverbs or adverbs like very, 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 very isn't going to cut it with your teacher. Like then you have to start doing other things. I'll do 2.25 spacing on my double line spacing.
That's right. That's right. You've really, But then every once in a while you're like, so your paper on Little Women was like 50 pages or 50 words. It's not gonna work. You gotta beef it up a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
There's like that much spacing between words.
Yeah. Well, that's how I still write copy to this day. It's like lots of line breaks,
Yep.
Right.
Quotes offset, like all that kind of stuff to make it easy to read for people. Well, Scott, what's your if somebody wants to write a book besides hiring you, like what's the one thing they need to know going into the process? Kind of what's the little bit of wisdom you want to leave with them? Then we'll give them ways to contact you.
Start with who are you writing this for? If you can't figure that out, it's all a waste. Your thesis, your idea, it's all horseshit. You have to figure out who it is you're writing this for to start with. Is it C-level executives in the, manufacturing industry? Is it plastic executives? Is it only VPs because you think maybe this book will help them become president or CEO? Figure out what that demographic is, that is market segment, and then always write every word should be written through that lens. Every word should come out of the thought process. Is this for that kind of avatar I've built for this guy? This guy he's probably 52. He's not, this isn't a Fortune 5 I'm going after. I'm really going after a Fortune 1 million, right? Probably a third-rate university. It's not really a Kellogg or like a Notre Dame. It's probably more like a Stephen F. Austin, like where I went, well, they're probably trying to work their way in. And then once you create that, that perfect human, you'll find if you write for that person, it just kind of writes itself, especially then you start thinking thesis. Well, how would this person kind of receive this information? How would she want to receive the information? And so it really starts with who. And write a book for everybody, write a book for nobody. You got to write it for exactly that market segment, or you might as well just don't even waste your time.
So you're talking about you're talking about drilling pretty deep because you're not just writing for, let's just throw out like if you're writing for, sales executives, if you're writing for, a book for sales executives, you really want to get, sales covers a lot of different industries. So you you could drill even further on that, right? You could drill
Absolutely.
Like executive salespeople in software industries or,
open up your LinkedIn. Yeah. You could go through these, probably like, okay, well, my average salesperson that I'm writing this book for looks like they've got about 12 years in. It looks like they've got an MBA, but it's online MBA. For whatever reason, they waited, they tacked on their MBA later in life. They didn't go back to school for it. And then you start kind of, well, they're probably 50 plus years old or 40. They probably got one kid. They probably have their second wife, maybe.
Yeah.
And you just kind of start figuring out, kind of who that is. And believe me, when you do it that way, you're going to write the right book for the right person.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about that is it doesn't automatically exclude people outside of that.
No, yeah.
Because if it resonates really strongly with that person, you'll get some kind of outer circles. It won't impact as hard.
Right.
Like it won't land as hard with them, but it will still land for ripples outside of that. So
the splash zone will be larger than just your exact target. The splash zone will be, out, but it's just, you're trying to figure out who your perfect client is. And sometimes you don't know that either. Maybe you're kind of brand new into the markets, but it takes a little bit of kind of getting. I mean, for instance, what is your ultimate client, and then kind of work your way back.
Yeah, and I think, I mean that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say something else, but I lost it. So, well, do you have any other questions, Jonathan? I was going to.
Where do they find out more? How do they get in touch with you? That's
so brightraypublishing.com, BRIGHTRAY, Brightray. Or, just look us up on Google, or look me up, Scott Turman, Turman on Google, and you can kind of back into my company that way. If you've got an idea for a book, give us a call. We can make sure it's right. And we've turned people down. If you don't have any experience to share, we'll let you know real quick. We'll figure that thesis out with you. Well, we can't sit there for 4 months and stare at each other. You got to have something to say. You got to have the experience, or it's not going to work.
Yeah. How does a conversation like that go? Dude comes to you and they're like, yeah, I want to do a book. And they don't have the first idea about, which direction they want to go. It's like it goes to the lines of, you're 3 years out of college. You don't know anything. You've got nothing to share yet. You got to have a little bit of experience in what it is that you do before you try to share that experience, or it's just going to be fluff and it won't have value, and it'll be a painful process because there's nothing to write. There's no experience to back it. There's no anecdotes to go back up points. That don't exist. Without that, the book will be worthless. And that's we pass on that 100%. Yep.
But
that's cool.
We'd also like to figure that thesis out together, and we're pretty good at that as well.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're pretty good at, because I wouldn't want to discourage too many people, because I think your team is probably pretty good at pulling out that kind of stuff that we take for granted, right?
So as an example, we have a hand surgeon who's got another business, and it's kind of like wealth management. Ultimately he's repairing the hands of NFL players or whatever, but ultimately he's trying to kind of get known like in that area, just so his more notoriety to help him with his business. Well, the book is basically how to keep your money as a football player. 80% end up in divorce. 80% end up in divorce. Yeah. Well, what's the title of the book? 80%.
Oh, wow.
80%. Yeah, because what's that mean? Then you back into the meaning, and that we come up with these kind of concepts, and
grabs your attention. Yeah,
it does. Absolutely.
I mean, and that's a great example of a niche, right? Here's a guy who wants to manage wealth for a very specific type of person. I mean, that's really good.
Exactly right. That's right. And in the NFL, it's probably higher than 80, but the research we found says it's about 80% fallout rate for over a long enough timeline.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Crazy.
Well, that reminds me of the financial manager or the financial guy that wanted to get into the food service industry. It was a story that I heard. And, I mean, that's just a prime example. If you're going to be a financial advisor, what do they call it? The danger in that industry is being like having a client list of like the ones where he's like one person from this industry, one person from this industry. The way to do it is to basically become an expert in a specific industry and own that industry. Yeah, and exactly. I remember a story that it was told by the guy that wrote I forgot the guy's name that wrote The Millionaire Next Door, but he talked about the financial advisor that became the guru in the food service industry. And he started showing up at their trade shows, and they're like, who are you? Right. And why are you here? I just want to learn everything about your business. Right. So,
yeah, I know, but try everything, right? In kind of the early in my career, I started a company called check4lead.com. We sold lead testing kits to test children's toys, right? Because there was a lead problem, in the 90s and 2000s. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to try something. And then, 3 or 4 months into it, we made 30 grand in a single day.
Wow.
And it was literally just something we had tried to go learn, and we just kind of put our feelers out to go learn in the industry, learn e-commerce, and it blew up. But try something. You've got to try and fail, get it out of the way, and go to the next thing.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Good advice,
Scott. It's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. We're going to send you to the green room for just a second. Sean and I are going to wrap up, and would like to talk to you briefly on the backside.
Let's do it. Thank you very much for having me.
Yep, you bet. All right. Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
The lesson here is go write a book, right?
Yeah. Or have Scott write it for you, or his team write it for you.
Yeah. Or start out with his book, How to Build a Brand with a Book.
There you go.
That'll get you started. And we'll be posting a link to that book on our show page this week. And Sean, it's been fun. This is fascinating. I always love talking about this topic because it's really so many different ways you can go when it comes to writing a book this day and age. You think about this 30 years ago, you talk about writing a book and you're like, well, I got to go through this company. Yep. Hopefully I can get a publishing deal. I've been turned down about 50 times. And, I don't know, maybe it'll work out.
I can just go write it, get it published.
Exactly.
And it still has clout. Like it's not
absolutely.
It hasn't lost a lot of clout, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing. I think early on in the self-publishing era, kind of the early days, people kind of looked at you like, but nowadays no one cares. No one looks at who you were published through. Who could care less? Because so many of these publishers have gone by the wayside or have been bought out by bigger publishers. So, everybody knows, the whole, the whole business model of publishing is kind of, fading fast, and technology's kind of spurred that along. But thankfully, anybody can get out there and write a bestseller.
Yeah, and online, whether it's Amazon or your own site, all books look kind of the same as long as you got a nice cover.
That's right.
A long ways. So
no doubt,
and good copy around it. So all right, well, wrap her up.
All right, good stuff. Thanks for listening, guys. As always, you can find us over Persuasion by the Pint. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms, Stitcher, Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it. You can find us there. If you have questions, reach out to us over at persuasionbythepint@gmail.com. If you have questions you'd like to throw out to us, suggestions for the show, we're always welcome to hear those. And Sean, it's been fun. We'll see you guys on the next episode. We're going to have a follow-up episode after this shortly. Coming up, we're going to be talking about, this is our random flight.
Yes.
We got some good ones on this. I know I looked at Sean. Sean sent me a text today. He's going to have some good ones.
Yeah, I think so.
So we'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Thanks for listening.
See ya.